our website is www.ottawacountypatriots.org. And for those of you who've been to that website before, if you go to it today, it's going to look a lot different. Am I right? Can you bring it up quickly? Okay, he's going to come up in a moment. It's going to look differently. Thanks to the gentleman who's going to come up here in just a moment and tell you a little bit about a new feature on that website. Come on up, Nathan. Okay, now one of the features that we talked about, the website is public. You can go there and you can just, anybody that knows www.ottawacountypatriots.org can go there. And there are things like, you know, the calendar and upcoming events and things like this and so on and so forth. But one of the features that Nathan's going to tell you about is a members only area. How many people in this room are members of the Ottawa County Patriots? And you've all paid your dues, right? How many people are paying members of the Ottawa County Patriots? What we're going to show is for you. By the way, you can become a paying member, and among other things, you will get access to this website. You'll get business cards, you'll get an identification thing, and when you come to a meeting, you will get a permanent one of these that has your name on it, so that you just don't have to write your name on it. And the business cards look a lot like this. It says Jim Chiodo. Yours probably won't say Jim Chiodo. It'll probably say something else. And so on. Okay. Now, we also have a couple of clubs, and we talked about that. You can find out more about that on the website. Right now, I want to quick go through some of the new features for Nathan.
Hi, I'm Nathan Silva. I'm the web designer, I guess, who put this thing together, along with Jim and Michael Carras and a few other people. Do we want to just look at the home page real quick? Okay. This is the home page for the new website. So speak up, Nathan. Sorry. If you look just under the banner, you'll see, can you scroll down a little, G? Yeah. You'll see a slider right there at the top. And this is something that we can use to promote events or news stories, any items of interest. So right now it doesn't have, it only has 3 items, but if you check back regularly, you'll see that will be updated with new things on a regular basis. Under that, under recent happenings, we have a list of recent events of interest to OCP members. Right now you can see some past meetings listed there. And if you click on the link there, it would actually take you to a page that's specifically for that meeting. So you can review meeting minutes. If there's video of the meeting, that would be posted on that page. Yeah. There's an example of one right there. The next section is upcoming events, and you can see our event here this evening is listed right at the top. So it just gives just a brief summary of what it is and where and when. But if you click on it, again, it would take you to the page for that upcoming event. Right. No, it'll show today still, but tomorrow it'll drop off into the past. Yeah.
That's right. We're not perfect.
Sorry about that. I guess I got the day wrong there. So yeah, and then you'll see there's some upcoming meetings here later on this year as well. So it's just a nice way to see what's coming up so you can make plans to attend those events. And then if you scroll down below there, you'll see a section called alerts. This is where we'll have content posted, original content. I know Jim's been out trying to find some contributors who want to write on various topics. And we've probably got some links to letters that members write in the Holland Sentinel, that sort of thing. So that'll be available in this section. And again, if you see a story you're interested in, all you have to do is click on the graphic or the link. It'll take you right to the post. Yeah, I picked out those graphics.
Yeah. Coming forward.
Yep, and we can post video content here, YouTube videos as well. So it's yeah, it's a whole multimedia experience for you. Gene, can you scroll up and go to the calendar a second? Yeah, click this button once, Gene. I think it's in. Okay. This is our event calendar page. And yeah, again, it's showing, it's not a week ahead there, but basically you can go here and you can go and look at either events in the past or events in the future. And if you click on one of the little tags where there's an event on a given day, it will take you to the page dedicated to that event. So this is just kind of a nice timeline there. It's another way of looking at upcoming events or going back in time if you have something that maybe you want to share with a friend from a past event. It'll all be there at your fingertips. So.
There's a meeting that was in March. Does that one have minutes on it? No, okay.
No, I haven't received those for Michael yet, but.
Past meetings, if you missed a meeting and you want to go back and look at what we did, sometimes we're going to have the minutes in there, we're going to have some video in there, not, we haven't got it completely filled in yet. So,
yeah, you'll see a blue button for like a past meeting with minutes, and it'll say like view minutes, and if you click it, it will open up a PDF document of the meeting minutes for you to view. So.
No, everything you're seeing now is for anybody who has a computer.
Yeah, this is all
Remember,
public for.
OTTAWACountyPatriots.org. If you can't remember that, then you can't get it. Anybody know what this button is for? Anybody can put anything in there if they want.
This is Don 8. What did Don need?
Know how to make this work. You have some numbers. Here, Carl, let me borrow your credit card so we can check it.
Yeah, we're gonna try it right now.
I think the most important thing here is for the member directory. Why don't we get to the member login? This is the area that we're going to go to, that you have to be a paying member. Again, we're only $20 a month, actually $20 a year. Unless you're in the club, and there's a couple plans, and you can find out about that. It costs a couple bucks more. But do we have a login right here? Anybody?
I have mine, or unless you want to use your login, so go ahead.
Because you're not going to.
No, it's because it's for members only. That's the other part of this, for paid members. What you want to do is actually send me an email, and then I can create an account for you and email you your login information.
You've got the list. Why don't you send it to members an email, give them, okay, this is your account name, this is your password. The password will be something cryptic. Once you log in, you can change it to whatever you want it to be. The paid members will get an email shortly from Nathan Silva.
Yeah, I can send an email out to all of the OCP members then and give you login credentials so you can get to that page.
Now, what's going to be on that page?
This page is going to have the OCP bylaws.
Why don't you log in, Nate, on your account? Why don't you log in with your account?
Yeah.
Go over there and log in on the.
Hold on, you bear with me just a minute.
You do that.
I'll grab that in a second.
That's secret stuff, though. There's people that are not members.
And
That's almost like a riot.
I have to get my password.
he doesn't remember his password. It's password. Password 1. No, it's Nathan. By the way, how many people in this room have sometimes wanted to contact the other people in this room, the other members? How many people want to contact? Do you know their emails? Do you know their contact? Do you even know their names? And I'm not about to give your names out public. So in other words, if you want to have access to other people, your other paying members, this is where you'll find it, under the member directory. As soon as he gets logged in, we'll show you that. Again, once you're a member, you can log into this area, you'll get everybody's name and contact information, unless you don't want it there. Bear in mind, the public cannot get to this area here that we're showing right now. Are we in?
Yeah, there it is, member resource.
Click it. Is there anything there yet?
I have not.
Okay, we have our bylaws, we have our member directory, minutes from the executive committee, and so on.
I'll have that tonight.
We'll be getting that in. I thought I sent you that email. Didn't I send you that list?
Yeah, but I'm working on the.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. He does have a job too, you know. But we wanted to make sure that we roll this out today, the 14th. How many people have ever gone to a business, a car dealer, a car shop, a florist, a funeral home, a whatever, and you wondered, you know, do I want to give my business to somebody who is a lefty-loosey? Wouldn't it be nice to know? Wouldn't it be nice to know who Patriots were? Can you go to the Patriot Business Directory? Now, this is something that anybody can go to. This is not in the member resources. And in here, we have some Patriot Business Directory. And we have a couple people who are out selling advertisements for free on here. If you know of somebody who would like to have their name on here and get free advertising, it'll only cost them nothing.
Unless they're lefty loosey.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is. Let me give this back to you.
You're wrong-handed.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good resource if you do know any business owners who'd be interested. Of course, I put in a plug for myself, but yeah, we can expand this as more people show interest there. Do we want to look at the contact page, Jim? Or, yeah, so I think that gives you guys a general overview of the highlights of the website. I will send out an email to all of the team members for Ottawa County Patriots, and you'll have your login information. And just keep checking the site back soon, because we're going to have a lot of exciting new content in the coming days and weeks. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jim.
Thank you. By the way, if there's anybody in here who would like to become an actual member and pay your dues, you want to see this man sitting over here behind the green curtain? All right. He is the treasurer. He'll get you fixed up. All right. Beg your pardon? 5 also? Oh, okay. In order for our website and some of the things, the bylaw amendment is, why don't you take care of this? quickly?
In order to realign the officers' responsibilities with the new website, we have to modify our bylaws. We also have to fix the typo in our bylaws. So we're going to do that, introducing the changes today, and then at our next meeting we can vote and approve these bylaw changes. Go to the next chart, Gene. It's hard to read here, but our postal address was wrong in our bylaws, so it's not a big deal, just got to be fixed. Our postal address is in West Olive. The zip code was wrong, it's going to be fixed. It's straightforward. The other change has to do, next chart, you can get the actual text from Gene or Jim or off the website in a couple of days. Changing the bylaws so that the president can appoint a webmaster to take care of the day-to-day management of the website, and we're assigning to the secretary the responsibility for the content on the website, not to generate the material, but to be basically the editor for the material before it goes on the website. Oh. So we make those two changes, and if we're comfortable with it, we'll give the president the power to appoint a webmaster, and the secretary the responsibility to basically edit the contributions of individuals to the website. So that will be available to the members to look at on the website in the members only section, and then at our next meeting, our next regular meeting, our next working meeting, we will vote to adopt or not those bylaw changes.
Thank you, Mike. One of the things that we do regularly, since we are the Ottawa County Patriots, we have a report on what happens at the Ottawa County Commissioners. Who was our, Ron, why don't you come up here and give us a quick what goes on? What are those commissioners doing? What are they buying? What are they selling? What are they doing behind our backs?
Hey, my name is Ron Strang, and this is the Commissioner's Report for today. All the commissioners were present, except for Gregory Rappelli, from his Corporation Council.
Yeah, he's not one of the regular commissioners.
All right. I was lucky to be there for the state of the county address, and I took notes as best I could. And I got the highlights because I was there taking notes and you weren't, so this is how we're going to do this. The county administrator is Alan Vandenberg. Start out with from year 2010 to 2014, Ottawa County is the fastest growing county in the state, which I think is pretty cool. It's healthiest county in the state. 3 out of 6 years. I don't know where they were. It's got a low crime rate. However, drug arrests are on the rise, and that has to do with the county WEMET program. This is a drug enforcement program with the county, the city, and the state getting together and busting the dopers out there. However, the county does have a good drug rehab program for what they have. I'm pretty sure it can get a lot better if they can get those kids or people off of dope. In a survey, 73% of the citizens of Ottawa County believe we're heading in the right direction on everything. So that's pretty good. Property tax is running about 3.6 mils, which is, according to Alan Vandenberg, that's the second lowest in the state. Housing costs are higher than other part of the states, but you consider the east side of the state, Detroit, Saginaw, Flint, we're giving houses away over there just to tear down. That's pretty good. I mean, you know, there's not too many nasty neighborhoods in Ottawa County that I the big negative is industry. And when they get their council together, you know, guys like our companies like Prince and JSJ, Grand Haven, you know, these big corporations, they can't get kids to work. They can't get them to learn skills. You know, I don't know if they all want to be art history majors or something like that, but they can't get the kids or the college kids in there to learn a trade or to learn a skill in industry, and they're beating their heads against the wall trying to figure out how the hell, excuse me, how that's the name in me, how to keep these kids in Ottawa County, so they learn a trade, so they, you know, it's like generations. It's like my dad, you know, he worked at Gardner Denver, and my brother worked at Gardner Denver, and stuff like that. So I don't know. They're trying to figure out just what they're going to do. If you want more on that, you can get on the website. You know. Okay, then they had an annual report for the county clerk and register of deeds. That was really interesting. And you all going to suffer just like I did. Justin Robach, he's the new the register of deeds, and he's first one, what, 34 years, I think. So, anyways, here's some interesting tidbits. Birth records are up 2,673. Home births are up 58%. So, all you ladies that want to get home, go right ahead. But you got to make sure that you follow all the procedures, and you got to make sure that the kids are registered, you know, and all that good stuff. You know, I'd get a midway if you're going to do something.
Just like buying a gun, you have a kid.
Yeah, there you go. A 9-month waiting list.
Good, George.
They registered 46,410 documents, lawsuits over 25,000 at 434. County brought in $1 million in fines, costs, and restitutions. Like I said, for more information, get on the Ottawa County thing. Then they passed 3 things. One's a grant application for the Grand River Greenway. That's a bypass for M231. Connector project to approve and authorize the board chairman to give his blessing whenever they need something done out there. Bids for Grand Ravine site, whatever that is, I have no idea what that is. But the construction low bid is $897,331.30. The funding from the parks budget plus donations. And bids for Grand Ravine barn restoration is approved. Bids from Barn Cats LLC, $71,865. And that's also from the Parks and Recreation and donations. Like I said, if you have any questions, get online. I'll answer it.
Thank you, Ron. Either our Sergeant at Arms or AFP, do we have a head count tonight?
I got 62, but I don't know what she's got.
62? I saw extra people coming in.
No, that shouldn't.
Count on, 1, 2, 3, okay, so 62, but I think it's a little higher than that, all right?
I'll recount. 112?
Okay, we'll just count the
That's how many arms. Oh,
the President's report, I'm going to dispense with that. There are some upcoming things, but and I'll talk about those as we go down the line. At this point, this program and the carbohydrates, protein, and sugar, except for and stuff, are courtesy of Americans for Prosperity Foundation. Our speaker is from Americans for Prosperity Foundation. And could I have John Chelsky, our director, to come up and just introduce our speaker?
Yeah, John.
Thank you, Jim. Andrew BONK is one of our grassroots trainers, and he is going to be speaking tonight about the amount of debt that the country is in. Andrew.
I think have the distance. Yeah, I can close myself.
Oh, you can look at yourself. Okay, you're all paying attention.
Button a little second. Just plug it in. Okay.
You're gonna have to hold it. Andrew, you're gonna have to hold it like that.
All right. Need to swap it.
All right. Tonight we get to talk about debt. Fun, right? I know it's not the most fun of topics, but I'm glad to see everyone here tonight. And of course, I wish I was talking about like a happy, really nice topic, something we could all walk away feeling really good about. But unfortunately, this is one of those topics that you're gonna hopefully you leave with that sort of like positive type of negativity, which means you're gonna hear a bunch of negative stuff, but hopefully you can go out and go do something with it. But I'm really glad to be here. I taught AP United States history for a number of years, and I decided to come on with Americans for Prosperity because I thought it was time to really start getting out there and speaking to people about the problems that our country faces and trying to find the solutions. I can only do so much talking about like the New Deal and saying, it was okay in these ways and it's pretty bad in these ways, really bad in these ways. But now I just come out right and say, how awful those programs were and why would we ever try to replicate those programs. So tonight we'll talk about debt. And again, I'm just very, very glad to be here. It's really interesting going around and I talk about a lot of federal issues, but it's interesting hearing your perspectives from the states. And I think it sounds like you guys are doing a great job of keeping track of what's going on in Michigan and really, you know, keeping the local politicians honest, and that's important because if you're not going to do it, I don't think anyone else will. So, you know, cheers to you guys for that. Basically, I'm with the Americans for Prosperity Foundation, so our mission is educational, and that's what we educate is about limited government, free enterprise, and how free enterprise leads to the most well-being for the most people. So that's sort of the quick version of that. Tonight, what I want to talk about is debt, and basically what we want to talk about the budget and how we got into this situation. Learn some alarming statistics that you might be able to use when you're talking with people, and talk about common reasons that people sort of brush debt aside. Why is debt not a big deal? Why do people say that? And obviously, why is that wrong, or why do we believe that's wrong, and the proper solution for that, and so the proper remedy. So that's just sort of a little bit of an overview. And I'm going to start off with those statistics that I mentioned. So the first one, if I were to start stacking dollar bills. Oh, sorry. What's happening? Sorry about that. I got excited. I was trying to stack dollar bills. I hit the button to go ahead. But if you're stacking the dollar bills, so stack them up and then you tip that over, all right, and put it around the equator, that stack would go around the earth 45 times if they were $1 bills. For our national debt. And that figure was calculated on a 16 trillion number, so it's probably closer to like 48 times today. So 48 times around the equator too, not around that one of the poles. Right? We're not cheating with this. It's the equator, obviously the largest part there. So every day the United States is increasing its debt by $2.44 billion. So, talk about spending that's gone out of control. There's that right there. Right now, if you were to take the pigs countries, right? If sometimes that's what people use to describe Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Spain, countries that are in financial trouble, or countries you can travel to and get a pretty good rate on because of their financial troubles. Well, if you were to stack up their per capita debt, so their debt per person. You know, the amount of debt and then divide by the people in the country, the United States can top all of them in debt. And those are the countries in Europe. I mean, France is on there, and they're you know, they've had a socialist you know, in charge, and we're still running more debt than they are. So that's concerning. All right, he's giving me an updated number here, so I got 55,000. You just ran the new number at $56,837. So if we were all just to stroke a check and count our families out, we'd have to write $55,000 checks. So all around that, does anyone want to cut that check tonight and we can just call it a night? I didn't think so. And imagine if we were to, you know, go try to attempt something that all that money that we're spending could have been saved, invested. What would have done with it? The capital that we could have purchased with it, and businesses that could have been started, that would just be vanished just to go pay off debt. So that's spending that's happened already. So I mean, if we were to do that, we'd be looking at you know, consequences economically in terms of growth and everything. This is an interesting one to point out. What this says is the U.S. debt is now 5,000 times larger than when the Federal Reserve was first established in 1913. Interesting about this slide is that when they approved the Federal Reserve, they basically said, all right, well, we can have this central bank, but what we're not going to do is allow them to directly buy debt from the government. So the government can't issue bonds and have the Federal Reserve buy them. They were worried there could be a potential for abuse there. And so it was just precluded from doing that. And then during World War I, right after that, what happens is, well, we've got an emergency, let's lift that qualification, but we'll put in place something that will protect us, right? It'll protect everyone, and I'm sure everyone will have the utmost confidence in what it is. It was a debt ceiling. So they put in place a debt ceiling. All right, you can buy debt from the government, but only up to this level. Once you get to this level, no more debt can be purchased from the Fed. No more government debt can be purchased by the Fed. So every time we approach that, as I'm sure people in this room are well aware, the debt ceiling is just simply raised. It has never not been raised. They just approach it and raise it, approach it and raise it, approach it and raise it, which is tantamount to not having a debt ceiling at all. And that's why the debt has been able to grow for over 5,000 times in just 100 years. It's really not that long. All right. The national debt increased over $7 trillion just under the current president. So the current president doubled the national debt. The president before him doubled the national debt. And you can keep going back in history, and they essentially, it seems like they all double the national debt, but at some point, we're gonna get to an unsustainable level here. And I mean, it's hard to think about the last two presidents, one being a Republican, one being a Democrat, still doubling the national debt. So we see we have a bipartisan spending problem here. Just a little comment about this. Let's talk about interest rates for a second, everyone's favorite topic. Interest rates. In August of 2014, we're looking at approximately a 2% interest rate on the government's debt. So they're only paying interest, roughly 2% on the outstanding debt. If just to compare, okay, back in January of 2000, that interest rate was 6.6%. So if we were to go back to that interest rate, so those 2000 levels, the amount of debt we have accrued since then would mean our budget would consist of $1 trillion just going to interest. All right? So if you think about that, we can't keep the interest rates low forever because that's essentially where price inflation will come from. Since you're creating money to put into the system to lower the interest rate, you're going to get that price inflation eventually. So the rates will come up at some point, and that's going to increase the government's debt payments to interest. And as you can see, since we've accrued so much debt recently, that interest payment is going to be astronomical. All right, and those were the mild statistics. None of those were quite as bad as this last one. This last picture is the scary one. And this is the one that a Boston economist estimated that the fiscal gap in the United States, fiscal gap, so that means all the future things we've promised versus the expected future revenues. So everything looking out into the future. A Boston University economist estimated this to be a $200 trillion fiscal gap. So you can forget about that $18 trillion figure, which is scary enough, and just count on $200 trillion. That is really what's been promised and what is going to have to be eventually not paid, because that type of money, it just does not exist yet. If you were to take like all the capital stock and everything in the United States, like we're looking at a figure that's probably around 100 trillion by some estimates. We're 100 trillion short on that fiscal gap. And again, so that's a Boston University economist. So if that's not broke, I really don't know what is. Okay, so that is really the situation the United States is facing right now in terms of debt. So how do we get there? Important to know, right? This is a picture of the budget, the expenditures. So if you just want to break it down very, very briefly, Medicare and Medicaid is in the yellow. That is 23% of the budget, or $802 billion. Social Security, $768 billion, or 22%. That's the blue, this blue right here. The defense spending, so Defense Department, $670 billion, or 19%. That's light blue. Other mandatory spending, so these are just programs that are going to be funded year in, year out, without really much discussion. That's $461 billion, or 13%. Discretionary spending, so that mandatory is purple. Discretionary is, look, it's like kind of a black color. Discretionary, 17% of the budget, or $615 billion. I'd just like to point out that when Congress, when everyone, when they make some cuts perhaps, or when they're talking about cuts, and we just talk about how cuts can never be done, can't be done, that's talking about the discretionary part of the budget alone. So we're never really talking about more than 17% of the budget. And they hardly ever cut from that, but that's really the only part that's even on the table to be talked about. So, when they make draconian cuts of a couple $2 billion, that's just a couple things from that discretionary part. So you can see it's really a small part of the overall picture there. The final gray little sliver there is that net interest. Okay, so we pay $223 billion per year just to service the interest that we've accrued on our debt. So that amounts to 6%. Now, as I said with one of those statistics earlier, if that interest payment has to go up, so if the interest rates have to go up to stave off higher inflation and the consequences that come with that, we're looking at, if you go up to $1 trillion, then imagine you'd have to make severe cuts. You have to cut 30% of the budget roughly, and you can imagine how difficult that might be politically. It's easy for me to talk about where the cuts come from, but when the politicians go try to make them, it's a whole other story. So what did this look like in 1970? You had the mandatory spending, so I just combined a lot of those things into the mandatory for this. At 31%, discretionary at 62%. So when they didn't have quite as much interest and quite as many automatic things that were spent on, there's a lot more discretion by Congress on what they could do. And you can see that interest payment wasn't too much. By the way, this slide is from the Mercatus Center, so that's a free market university, part of George Mason University, that estimated this. So obviously 2020 hasn't happened, 2040 hasn't happened. They're just kind of looking where the writing's on the wall, what the spending is going to be. So by 2020, that mandatory spending is going to balloon up to 64%, mostly because of the entitlements that have kind of kept growing and growing and growing. So like Medicare, Medicaid, being a big part of that. Discretionary is going to drop down to 17, and they're estimating increases in the interest, obviously, by this point, and they're thinking interest will have to be about 19% of the total budget there. So, that's pretty hefty. But by 2040, with the amount of debt that's been accrued and expected rise in interest rates, they believe it's going to be 35% going to interest, 47% to mandatory, and that discretionary is going to shrink down to 17. So, again, it's hard to predict out into the future, and you're not 100% sure about any of these predictions, but this is the best estimates based on the current situation. So obviously, we want to minimize the amount of interest being paid by not carrying debt at all, because that's wasted money, that's dead money there, things that are going to nothing. All right, so I got a question for the audience here. What of these things would you consider that are just completely off the table if we wanted to make cuts? So the list is probably hard to see for everyone, so I'll just read them quickly. Social Security, National Defense, Medicare, Veterans Benefits, Health Research, Education, Highways, Foreign Aid, Unemployment Benefits, Science and Technology Research, Agriculture, Housing, Environment, Mass Transit. Anything completely off the table to you guys?
Foreign aid.
Like off the table, like I would never cut this.
Oh, off the table.
Let's just cut Social Security, nobody needs that.
Yes?
Interesting is because most of us get paid in our employers or if you're self-employed, a whole hell of a lot of money into Social Security. And that seems to be the one that the government is looking at to make cuts in. And yet we can't cut any of the free benefits that we give to people that aren't even citizens. It's amazing.
All right, so let's just like, and imagine this group too. Think about this group. I think we as a group might be a little bit more likely to make some cuts than some others. Like, so what's off the table? I mean,
Medicare and Social Security are completely off.
all right. Let me rephrase. What if you had to choose? What would you cut?
Department of Education.
Not the government.
Education, the government. How do you? What can the whole thing?
Politician. Department of Agriculture.
All right. Okay, so now that makes sense. So I guess I know who I'm speaking with here today, which is good. I agree on many of the cuts will be necessary. Let's talk about the average American for a second. As the average American, there's only one of these categories that is not off the table. So if you ask someone just off the street, they're going to say Social Security. That's off the table. National Defense off the table. Medicare off the table. Anyone know which one is the only one? Like, okay, yeah, we could cut that. It's foreign aid. 71% of Americans believe that foreign aid could be cut. So we do have agreement there. That's good. The only problem is that foreign aid is less than 1% of the budget, as I'm sure many of you guys know. So let's say we just completely get rid of that. Now we still have 99% of the budget to contend with. So we still have 99% of the problem left. So let me just read you some of the statistics, and this is not advocating for certain cuts over others. And these are just what people would go with. Some of the next items are spending like housing, the environment, mass transit. None of these exceed though, like the next highest, other than 4 days, none of these exceeded 29%. So meaning almost 70% of people say, well, all of those things are off the table. We can't even talk about cutting those. All right, we'll talk about the other thing. We'll talk about foreign aid, but we can't talk about these things. Can't even discuss it. All right. So let's take those big ticket items. All right. So Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Just in order here, 7% of the voters said it's on the table for cuts. 11% of voters and 7% of the voters on the table for cuts, respectively. So that means to the average American, those big ticket items, 90% would obviously argue that they're off the table completely, can't discuss it one bit. Next highest, military spending. All right, we talked that was the third largest category. Only 22% would leave that to be trimmed whatsoever in any way. So again, not advocating for any particular cuts, but you can see to the average person, all of these cuts are off the table. So if we're not going to cut spending, then the only other thing to do would be to raise taxes to stop running deficits, right? So if you ask the average American, what would you prefer to do? Would you rather decrease spending or increase taxes? The number is 62% favor spending cuts. All right, but as you can see, all those spending cuts were essentially off the table. So, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Only 5% preferred raising taxes to pay the deficit. Now, of course, I do not advocate raising taxes in any way, but I'm just merely pointing out that you got to reduce the deficit somehow. It's got to come from somewhere. So, what this graph is, it's a percentage of GDP taken by the government in taxes. And this is just the federal revenues, which amount to about 20%. Obviously the government would try to take more if it could, right? But these citizens start voting people out if it gets any higher than 20%. And that's not a law of nature, but you can look at it and say that's pretty consistent for the last 70 years. If we lose more than 20% of our paychecks to the federal government, we'll start, demanding changes so that they don't really try to push the envelope more than that 20%. But as you can see, we've been stuck at that for a very long time. You can't increase the taxes to get rid of the deficit. State and local take another 13% if you want to just average out America. And so this means basically to the average American, we'll lose 1/3 of our paycheck to taxes. before we really start demanding changes and those types of things. So simply put, we've already been at that level where the max taxation that we're allowing is going to occur. So you can't really raise taxes to get rid of the deficit. So, and obviously, and I think you guys know this in here, even if we were to start raising taxes, this would have probably a negative effect anyway, right? If we try to pay off the debt by raising the tax, it's going to harm economic growth, it's going to harm businesses, and you're probably going to lower the tax base anyway, right? So it's not a suggestion. It's just merely pointing out that most people don't want cuts, most people don't want to raise taxes. Well, what are we going to do? So let's talk about a household budget real quick. And I'm going to have a couple forms passed out to you. We're just going to briefly look at them when you get it. I want to know which person you would most want to be on this form, meaning like they're in the best debt to income ratio. So you're going to see that in the form. It's a grid. And which person you would least likely to be, and which person you would most want to be. And you can also think of it as like, hey, I would loan this person money and I wouldn't loan this person money. So you just take a look at these individuals. Their names are Brian, Adam, Sally, Grace, Greg, and Spencer. We'll go through this quickly. But just, you know, you can just shout out who you would not want to be and who you would want to be. I'll just take that and you can sort of take a look at the figures a little closer. I've never done this with such a large group, so I don't really know how this is going to work, but who don't you want to be? Or who would you loan money to? Based on their debt to income ratios. So you can see how much credit card debt they have, how much money they bring in, how much money they spend. Who do you want to be? You guys a second to look things over. There's a lot of numbers on there. Could be. Adam's in a tough spot. No doubt about it. All right, I'll take a verbal sort of shout out here. Who do you want to be? Who's in the best situation? Brian. All right, Brian's usually a consensus number one here for this household budget. And I already heard from the front, Adam seems like he's having a tough time controlling his spending. Yeah, Adam, take it easy over there, big guy. Okay.
That's the United States of Adam.
The United States of Adam. All right, these, as many of you have begun to figure out, Brian, Sally, Greg, they're generally in the best fiscal scenarios. Spencer, Grace, Adam they're spending way too much money. These individuals have names. Brian is Brazil. All right, Sally is Switzerland. Grace, who do you think Grace is? Grace, that was the easiest one to name. All right, Greg is Germany. Spencer is Spain, leaving Adam as the United States of America. I couldn't think of any U names. That also wouldn't give it away completely. But as you can see, yeah, okay. I should have called you when I was making this, right? But I thought Adam might be a little.
Sounds very good.
Yeah, I know, right? So.
Not the first guy screwed up.
Now, the only thing I'll point out about this is about debt to income here. So, like, for instance, if you were to take Greece, their actual probably personal revenue is like $2,000, and their debt is probably about $2,000. I just had to multiply it in ratios to keep it like comparable to one another. So, like, you might say, like, hey, Adam looks better. Because, you know, Grace only has $2,000 of income, right? But the ratios all stay intact. They're all the same, and the point is debt to GDP. So that doesn't really change anything with the example. So really, what you're seeing here is, Greece gets talked about a lot for the financial trouble that they're in. Well, Adam is in the same financial trouble. He just hasn't had the creditors come due yet. So it's only a matter of time before the United States have the creditors come knocking, essentially. So let's take a look at the this chart here. This is the 2011 sequester. You guys remember the sequester? So we made some cuts. All right. So let's take a look at what this sequester spending looked like in 2011 with the very same charts that you have out there now. So income, $21,000. All right, that really what that means is 2.1 trillion. Money spent, 3.8 trillion or $38,000. All right, but again, what does $3 trillion even mean to anyone? No one can conceive what that actually means, but that's why we lopped off 8 zeros and we can actually compare in terms that we actually deal with every day, 38,000 and 21,000. Credit card debt, so in this year, the United States put on $16,000 of debt, or roughly $1 trillion. And so that brings their total credit card debt to 142,000. This was 14 trillion dollars then, right? So when we all had this sequester, we had these major cuts. Like you would have thought it was the end of the world, especially with people living in my area in Virginia. Talking because pretty close to DC there. People talking about these are the biggest cuts ever, huge cuts. Can't afford these cuts, crazy cuts, right? $385, this person who is spending thousands and thousands and thousands above their income, they've managed to cut $385. Like, congratulations, but that's not really all that impressive to me, at least. I don't think you and I would be able to get away with this in our personal budgets very long. The hypothetical 2015 here, it's just some numbers of what a hypothetical budget cut might look like. So we're bringing in more revenue now than we ever have, 3.3 trillion. We're still spending more, $37 trillion. Or excuse me, sorry, $3.7 trillion. That equates to 37,000 in this. So we're still adding $4,000 of credit card debt, which would be $400 billion. And we already have a debt of $180,000. So we're making $33,000 a year in terms that we can understand, but we already have debt of $180,000. And it's not like a mortgage or anything like that where, once we pay it off and we have that asset. Once you pay this off, it's just there. I mean, it's just payments into nothing, essentially. So what would we have to do to balance our budget? A cut of $1,000? I mean, could you imagine $100 billion of cuts? That would be $1,000 for this person. Right? And that wouldn't even get us to even. That wouldn't even balance the budget. We need to cut $4,780 from this, or the equivalent, meaning $478 billion. I don't think there's really the political chance of $478 billion being cut from the budget. So then again, you can just look at this individual, you can see the debt problem, you can see it there in terms we can all understand, but just keep wondering why can't there be any changes, right? So let's talk about some debt myths. I mean, after all, someone's got to think this is an innocent process, right? Someone's got to think that accruing all this debt can be temporarily beneficial and we can just pay it off later. Someone's got to think these kinds of things. So let's take a Paul Krugman article. He's a sort of a left-leaning Keynesian economist, and he actually wrote an article about the debt, criticizing the very stuff I'm talking about tonight. And so I'm going to criticize him instead, all right? So I'm going to read his article, or just 2 lines of it, because I don't think we could all get through the whole thing, right? We'd all have we would have like a riot on our hands here, so let's not do that. So his article's talking about debt says, first, there's a difference between the household budget and the government budget, so that's where he's going with. Families have to pay back their debt. Governments don't. All they need to do is ensure that debt grows more slowly than their tax base. And second, and this is the point almost nobody seems to get, an overborrowed family owes money to someone else. The U.S. debt is, to a large extent, money we owe ourselves. So, we owe it to ourselves, right? It's not that big a deal. So let's unpack what that actually means. So, and I guess I should point out that, like, superficially on the very technical sort of accounting side, I guess he is correct. But to say it and just brush it off like it's no big deal is really what the myth is all about here. So, flaw number one in this, to me, is that obviously some of the debt, or probably close to $5 trillion of that, is owned by foreign governments, foreign citizens, foreign central banks, etc. So obviously that money is not money we owe ourselves, and he knows that. That's why he said to a large extent. So that leaves the other about 13 trillion or so that U.S. citizens have purchased bonds, and they owe that money to the government. But secondly, and this is I think the major flaw, right? It matters if you are we or if you are ourselves, because we don't owe money to ourselves, or else we could just repudiate the money to ourselves, and then it would be no big deal either way that way, right? So we is the taxpayers, so the taxpayers owe money to the bond holders, who is ourselves. So who's going to be hurt here? The poor, right? If you don't have any, bonds, and you're paying higher taxes to pay that off, that's of little solace to you. People, younger people, the poor in general, those are the people that are going to be most hurt by this. And so it's very vague, nondescript kind of thing to say, hey, we owe it to ourselves. Who cares? Right? It's not a big deal. Because, again, we and ourselves are two different people there. And the main criticism I have, and I can't believe this economist overlooks and sort of downplays here, is that this $18 trillion has been siphoned away from the private wealth-generating productive economy, all right, where capital is accumulated, production is made more efficient, prices are lowered, businesses start, businesses hire. All this $18 trillion has been siphoned away and used arbitrarily by the whims of the bureaucrats and whatever they decide, whatever they want. So this $18 trillion has been decided to be used, just this project, that project, and I think everyone in here knows all the times the government waste projects, and they can think of all these statistics and things that were wasted. All that $18 trillion, I can't say it's all wasted, but essentially it's all not used as wisely as it could have been by the private sector, fulfilling needs of consumers with jobs, and people would be much better off. I think people would rather work for themselves and work for jobs that are being productive and wealth generating than just, again, arbitrarily decided by governments. And then finally, my last flaw here is that I still think he's overlooking the generational theft opportunity that might be occurring here. So I'd like to point this out with 3 generations of people. Can I get 3 volunteers? Just people that are just willing to stand up front. That's essentially the requirement here. 3 volunteers.
Right here. 1, 2, 3. You got 3 right here.
All right, I need 2 now. Standing is the only requirement. All right. Only requirement, all right. So if you guys will just get in the line for me. All right. So we have 3 generations of Americans here. All right, we have the oldest generation right here, retired. Right here. He's had a good career. Taking it easy now. All right, we have the middle working generation here, currently working, and then the youngest generation close here. So, this example is from an economist from NYU. His name's Robert Murphy. He's a really good free market economist, and I'm using all the figures that he used in one of his articles. Really good article. I highly recommend it. Robert Murphy is his name. So what his example is his, let's say we decide we want prescription drug coverage for our oldest generation over here, right? And we want to pass comprehensive coverage here. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer these government bonds. I'm the government here. I'm offering bonds to pay for this. And the sunglasses can represent the prescription drug coverage here. So Adam, since you volunteered first, all right, you get free sunglasses here. So it pays the volunteer in these situations. So the sunglasses, that is the prescription drug coverage. So you can see that benefit accruing to Adam. I'm paying for that with the government bonds. So we're going to take this $100 billion out of the economy, and we're going to replace it with the government bonds, right? So, you know, let's just ignore that could have been saved, invested, and it would have gone to wherever entrepreneurs best wanted to use that. Well, we've taken the $100 billion, replaced it with bonds, and now we've purchased the prescription drug coverage with that. All right, so that's the first step in this. Now, imagine 29 years later, that this working generation here, the younger generation here, what they're going to do is they're going to purchase these bonds because they've been offered for sale. 29 years later, that interest is accrued 3% annually. So if you'll trade the government bonds for the $236 billion, all right. So again, that's just the interest that's accrued. So you can see this generation here, they got 3% returns. They got some interest accrued. They're doing okay here. All right, but those bonds, it's a 30-year bond. It's coming due soon. So you've got the government bonds. They're coming due on the government. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pass a tax here. I'm going to pass a one-time tax. I'm going to actually take, you're the working generation now. I'm going to take this $243 billion. All right, so I've taxed this away here. I'm going to go ahead and give this back to you in exchange for those bonds. Could you do that for me? There you go. Everyone see what just happened there? She owed it to herself. Wait a second.
Yeah.
How did that work out?
Not so good.
No, not so good for that youngest generation, right? So I don't think it was much solace to them that they owed it to herself. So let's look at this. Generation one's got the nice shades. All right, I think they benefited. They got some prescription drug coverage out of this. When they passed away, I mean, I guess it had to happen sometime for them, but they did better off. This middle generation, they had 3% interest annually. They did okay. They sold it. They sold off their bonds. You know, that's good. This youngest generation, what happened to them? They owed it to themselves. They were taxed the entirety of the money to pay for it. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. That's not how it happens, right? We don't just tax all the money just to return it to the money. But if we were, this is what would happen. Now, so what happens in reality? We just keep kicking the can down the road to the generations and generations, and it keeps accruing and accruing and accruing, and we're paying interest on debt that was accumulated long ago. But it's not productive, debt anymore. You can see how the generational theft could occur, and really what you see is just a bunch of kicking the can down the road. So I think that example does a pretty good job of showing how generational theft could actually occur. So thank you, volunteers, for coming up. Right, so yours.
You know, to make matters worse, you're paying interest on interest when you do that.
And with
Exactly.
devalued money, the money will be devalued by that time
Oh, yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So you're paying a huge debt with.
Yeah,
With devalued funds.
Yeah, and we're kind of getting it easy. I said earlier, but I think the interest rates are, they've been at record lows for 5, 6, 7 years running now, and that's going to have to come up at some point. And when that happens, all that extra debt, when it comes due, is going to have a new high interest rate on it. It's going to be unsustainable. At some point, this has to get paid off. Well, that's not what the people of this myth will tell you. The United States cannot go broke. I remember learning this in my freshman year macroeconomics class. I was, well, okay, I mean, I'm 18 years old. My professor's telling me the United States can't go broke. I guess they can't go broke. I don't know what's all this fuss about. But it turns out when you actually think about it, of course the United States can go broke. Any country can go broke. Any person can go broke. So this is based off the exact same premise of the first one. It's a technically true thing. Okay. I guess the United States can't go broke because what they could do is literally print the new money to pay off the debt and pay off the debt. So, okay, yes, they can't go broke in that sense, but they could, like, usher in a huge, massive hyperinflation just trying to cure that debt problem. So, I don't think that's any solace to people like us who are worried about the deficit that, like, technically they can't go broke because we could just print the new money and spend it. Again, just like while it's technically correct, it's sort of ignoring all the major flaws. And basically the other thing I like to point out here is when we have these conversations about debt, basically what they say is, hey, we need to raise the debt limit. The United States, we pay our bills, right? That's what they say. And then, but why? It blows my mind that no one, like in the media, ever says anything about this. Like, all we're doing is raising the debt so we can take off new debt to pay off the old debt. That would be like you and I, our MasterCard's getting a little high, time to pay it off with a Visa. You said that doesn't make any sense. That's not sustainable. That is not morally right. That is not economically sound. And it's just kicking the can down the road. Unfortunately, like everything else seems to happen with politics. So once again, just trying to increase taxes to pay off the debt. That's going to have problems. No matter which route you go, we're going to see problems. And so yes, technically the United States can't go broke because we can issue new bonds and pay it off with just newly printed money, but that would ruin the economy in the process. Or maybe even if it doesn't ruin it, they're still going to have hyperinflation. It's going to hurt people on fixed incomes, people that are retired, the poor. I mean, these are the people that are the most vulnerable and who are going to be hurt the most. But yet you never really hear much about it. So, let's talk about the 4 repayment options here. You can raise the taxes, as we've said a few times. So taxes could be raised in order to try to pay off the debt. But I mean, as we saw earlier, it's not really viable to try to pay off the debt just raising taxes. We're kind of already taxed as it is, and 18 trillion is kind of a lot. You can imagine, like maybe one, that's basically 100% of our GDP, right? So maybe one year we just sacrifice a lot, right? We all work, we just pay off the debt in one year. But then, again, but now we haven't purchased any food, now we haven't purchased any shelter, so we're all dead trying to pay off the debt in 1 year. So clearly, can't do that. And raising taxes alone, just to reiterate, it's not a good enough solution because we're going to corrode economic growth. And we're never going to be able to pay off the debt with that. So, quite frankly, higher taxes, maybe it's just not an option. So, you can try it. You can try to do it in sort of the short term and here and there, but it's really just not a good viable option. Decreased spending is the next option. Now, of course, any plan is going to have to include decreased spending. I think this is one of the most important ingredients. Without these cuts here, the unfunded liabilities, that $200 trillion figure, that it's just not, it can't be paid. Like the money literally doesn't exist to pay that off. So cuts are going to come. They're going to have to come. There's going to need to be a lot of serious talks about where those cuts are going to be coming from. And decreased spending is not very popular overall with the general public. So, as we saw, most everything is off the table. I mean, you could go across the board cuts. You could, try to pick and choose programs here or there, but you're going to get stuck having these political conversations of benefits of this program, benefits of this program, benefits of this program. It's very hard to weigh out, and it's a very, it's a problem. Right now, we don't really hear the major problem because our creditors haven't really come knocking yet. That's because there's a lot of other countries that are in trouble too, and so far we just haven't been faced with that issue yet. But it could very well happen that people decide to stop loaning the United States money, and then obviously the deficits would have to stop. Payment option number 3 is inflation. All right, so you could imagine that we just start printing a lot more money and paying off the debt, but what happens there, right? That's the government literally just stealing resources from us, because they're taking resources or paying off resources that they used before, and all they did was press enter on a keyboard, right, and just print all the money. We always say print, but it's done electronically now. They've got, like, the phrase hasn't caught up with the actual action, but I think it's pretty obvious how if they borrowed money and then they pay it back with money that they just conjure out of thin air, then they're literally just stealing resources from us, from the productive aspects or parts of society. So inflation could be a route that is chosen to start paying off the deficit, but again, there's that moral aspect of that. Is that just? Is it economically beneficial? It's a pretty scary thought to imagine just out of control prices because we're trying to just pay off the debt. So then the final option on the table is just a default. Said, all right, we're bankrupt, we can't pay it. It's kind of like a person might go through a bankruptcy. The U.S. government could go through a bankruptcy and say, hey, we kind of got ourselves in a hole here, can't pay it all, so sorry, basically is what that would amount to. Now that also, again, has consequences. If let's say there's a national emergency, for some reason, whatever it would be, the U.S. government can't borrow money. I mean, you can imagine the situation. Like national defense-wise, we would want to be able to borrow that. We want to pay off the money that we borrowed. So default, again, is not a very good option. It could be a combination of all 4 of these things. It could be 3, 2, or 1 of them. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But these are really the only ways to pay off the debt. Each of them carry, obviously, their own consequences. But where that comes from is because of the situation that the politicians have gotten ourselves into here. So again, it's one of those situations like there's really no good way out. So again, if we were to finally end here, what would we cut? Well, I don't know. Well, I'll have to leave that as a rhetorical question to you guys. But I think it's important to be thinking about what the government's role in the economy should be, what the private entrepreneur's role should be, what our role should be as workers and citizens, and how we should finance government. Should we pay for what we're using? Should we spend what we bring in? Should we try to pay off the debt responsibly? Should we not make outrageous promises in the future just to get elected on the short term, or should we go educate people as to what's going on and trying to stop that from happening? So I'll just leave that as a rhetorical question. What would you cut here? But the last kind of point that you can make is, do you really want it to be on someone else's terms, like when the creditors say, hey, we're not going to start funding you now, and when kind of what's happening agrees, or do you want to do it to yourself and say, all right, these are the tough cuts, but these are the cuts that need to be made, and we're going to institute these. We're not having it imposed by a creditor not coming up. So, question?
Drew, do you have an estimate of how much of our Social Security entitlement goes to seniors and how much goes to people on disability, children who are learning disabled, illegal immigrants, and so on? Do we have any kind of factor on that?
I would recommend maybe checking out a couple of places that I like to go for information. I like to go to the Mercatus Center. They're sort of one of our network partners of America's Prosperity and the foundation. They do a lot of the sort of, they have like really good PhD, like free market economists that work for them, and so they'd probably be able to give you that information. I don't have that off the top of my head, but
You have a gut feeling?
I don't want to I don't want to guess and be wrong, so now I'm gonna go with no. But yeah.
Over the years, several economies around the world, among them were Argentina, and I was down there lots of times. But in '83, when the Malvinas thing, Falkland Islands thing was going on, right before you were born, the breakfast at the Hilton there, the first day I was there, the first morning I was there, was 32,000 pesos. The next morning, they had a devaluation Friday night when the banks closed, and the next morning it was 41,000 pesos from 32. We were talking to a customer and having a cup of coffee with him Saturday morning, and he says, you know, it's the funniest thing. He says, we had 3 10,000 to 1 devaluations just in the last 20 years. And he says, I bought my house for a little less than what we're paying for this coffee right now. Okay? So,
And that
7 10,000 to 1 devaluation.
The
It happens.
one of the reasons that sort of the government might like inflation is when I see the price of coffee or bread or gasoline or cars rise, I don't immediately go blame the politicians, even though it's the literally the creation of money that's funding this inflation. So it's sort of a backdoor tax, a hidden tax, that some people like Milton Friedman like to call it that, or was it Friedman or Mises or one of the free market guys calls it a hidden tax, because it's the government's monopoly on the money, they're creating more of it, but it distorts all of our interactions and trade, and sometimes we blame each other for the rising prices when there's a clear factor. So, well, I really appreciate being here. You guys are a great audience and very attentive, so I'm glad you gave me a few minutes to talk about the debt here, and I'll turn it back over to these other guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. Okay, we're going to, we've got about 10, 15 more minutes of our program. You know, we crammed a lot in here. We wanted to give Drew a good amount of time. And at this point, what I'd like to do is our 50-50 ticket sales lady. Could we have her pass among you? Because what we're going to do, anybody else that still would like to buy a 50-50 ticket or more could actually, well, Tammy, do you think you can just walk around with that? Okay, never mind.
Raise your hand if they want to buy things.
I want you to just, you can walk over there if you want to, but I'd like you to pay attention, okay?
All right. I'll just wait right here.
I said before, why don't I just use this thing?
Yeah.
I said before that our meetings are on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. Voila. Our next meeting is on the 23rd. Is that the third Thursday or is that is the fourth Thursday of the month? Why would we have a meeting on April 23rd on a Thursday? Quite frankly, because we have some state legislators who don't get out of Lansing on time on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or any other day, but they do get out of Lansing on a Thursday to come back to the Holland area. Now, let's talk about that meeting. Does everybody know everything there is to know about Proposal 1, the ballot question on the vote May 5th? Does everybody know everything about it? All right. Is there some, hang on. Okay. Is there some confusion?
Yeah.
You have some choices. On April 21st, you can go down to Holland City Hall and you can see a presentation, listen to a presentation by the Holland Area League of Women Voters. And a lady by the name of Judy Corrender Jeff, I'm probably not pronouncing her name right. She is a member of the League of Women Voters. She's the past director of Michigan Planned Parenthood Affiliates. She is the advocacy director of the League of Women Voters. And some of the other things they advocate for are climate change. They advocated for a veto of the Keystone XL. and they are advocating for equality. I won't go into more than that. And she will be presenting her facts, the facts that she has researched and so on. Right? On April 22nd, you can go up to Grand Haven, and Susan Robertson with the Grand Haven League of Women Voters will be presenting Proposal 1, and they have an educator to do the pro side, and they have, I'm not sure who they got on the opposed side. I had given her several names, and she wants to do a pro and con, the way we normally do it. On April 23rd, the Ottawa County Patriots will have the Ottawa County Road Commissioner, Tom Bird, and the Macatawa Area President, Macatawa Area Coordinating Council President, Stephen Bullheis, who both have come out publicly in favor of Proposal 1. And on the opposition, we will have Cindy Gamrat, State Representative from the 90th District, 80th District, 90th? 89th District, no, 90th District, all right? 89. No, that's Amanda, Amanda's 89th, 90th is 80th District, sorry. Okay, and we will have Todd Corser, State Representative from the 82nd District, I believe he's in.
What date is that?
April 23rd. Now,
Wednesday.
no, it's a Thursday. Does this thing have writing on it? Good. No, it doesn't. You're not going to be here. All right. Where we're going to be, does everybody know Holland?
Yeah.
This is Lakewood. This is River.
You need to get your roads fixed.
And here's 31 over here.
Speak up.
And here's 31 over here.
Thank you.
31, this is River, this is Lakewood, and right here, there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And then up here is James.
Cemetery.
And there's some dead people over here, some crosses. And on this side of James, what's that? On this side of James,
Obama voters.
right, this side of James, there is a building here. They used to be called the Raleigh Woods Banquet Center. And there's a little canopy here, it comes out, the big parking lot here, okay? And it's actually the New Life Fellowship Church. That happens to be my, the congregation I belong to. We'll be using the banquet center, and it's laid out quite nicely. It's a beautiful place inside, if anybody's ever been in there. That will be April 23rd at 7 p.m. It is on James. I don't know the exact number, but again, this is
James and Beeline.
Beeline.
And Beeline.
And this is James.
The map will be on the website.
The map will be on the website.
There you go.
All right, and that should be an extremely good presentation. And if anybody's still confused after ours, I understand that, well, Arlen Meekoff and Amanda Price were supposed to hold their own forum somewhere in Spring Lake. I don't know if they're going to do it because apparently Arlen has withdrawn from that for some reason. Okay? Okay, now what I did is I jumped ahead to the 23rd, and today's the 14th. What day is tomorrow? Does anybody know what tomorrow is? Tax Day. What do Tea Party people generally do on Tax Day? Lansing at 12 o'clock to 3, there will be a rally on the steps of the Capitol. It will primarily be in opposition to Proposal 1, but it will be a general legislative action day, and there will be some speakers, and I believe Paul Mitchell from the Coalition Against Higher Taxes, etc., will be coordinating that. Are there any Democrat or Republican events coming up? I understood that the Democrat meeting is on the, I want to say the 25th. I just saw that somewhere on my Facebook page. They're going to have, it's going to be in, I think it's going to be in Grand Haven somewhere, and I'm not, yes?
On the 20th of April, so it'd be Monday, in Ionia, we are going to debate this question. Here's the excitement on why you should attend. Next to me will be one of the most progressive radio hosts in the state. against the proposal with Cindy Gamrat against the proposal versus Mike Knopf, two other morons. I don't know. Who they are. But anyway, you will probably never ever in your lifetime see a radio show host this progressive on the same side as us.
Can you do me a favor and email me that so that I can post it on our website?
Yes.
Okay?
And they're serving good refreshments, so you want to come.
As good as we had here tonight?
No, nowhere near.
I don't think, nobody could top that. But by the way, thank you again to Americans for Prosperity Foundation, who just, it's interesting. John and I went out to buy this stuff the other day, and he made the comment, he said, oh, you never should go shopping when you're hungry. we have a lot of good stuff out there. There's still some stuff. We want to take some of it home with you. All right, lastly, in May, I'm not sure, May 10th, 12th, whatever that meeting date is in May, we're going to have ossifer nominations. There are 4 of us. Officer, not ossifer. I said that way on purpose, just to see if anybody was paying attention. If you would like to, what? That's right, 5 of us, I'm sorry, I've counted myself twice. Anyhow, if you would like to nominate anyone, if you would like to run for any of these, please make your thoughts known. If anybody would like to run for president, please let yourself know. All right. With that, we have, is there anybody with some new business? Ann Duran. I'm always pronouncing your name wrong.
Derwan.
Huh?
Derwan.
Derwan. Derwin.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Speak up good and loud.
Okay. Yes, I'm Ann Derwin from Muskegon, and I'm collecting signatures for a resolution to eliminate Common Core. And this came from Laura and Carrie Krebs at the Oceana County Tea Party. We're going to that tea party tomorrow night, no, Thursday night, pardon me. And Melanie Curtis is going to be there again. She was at our informational group for current events in Muskegon last month. But she's going to be at the Oceana County Tea Party tomorrow night. And I would like to give her more signatures, Thursday night, more signatures than what I've collected so far. So if you would like to sign this, I'll be here at this table, and would love to have you.
Why don't you do this, Ann? Why don't you park yourself at one of the tables going out the door? Okay. And as people go out, if they'd like to sign that, that would be wonderful. Okay. Anybody else have any new announcements, new business?
Jim?
Yes.
You were talking about the Republican and Democrat thing.
Correct.
The Republican meeting is the same day as...
Yes, I know. The Ottawa County Executive Committee will also be April 23rd.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go to that because we're going to come to the proposal 1 forum. Yes, Ann?
One more thing, our informational group on current events will be on the 28th of this month, and Holly Hughes, representative from the 91st District, will be there, and we'll be questioning her on this proposed 1% increase.
And by the way, this is Ann speaking from Muskegon. It is not the Muskegon Tea Party. It is the Muskegon Information and Awareness Organization.
Informational group on current events.
Informational group.
And it's held at Central Assembly of God at 896 Home Street in Muskegon. We are not a tea party.
No, they're the IGIE. Is that correct? Information.
Okay, do you want to-
And what's the date? The date?
The date. What date? April 28th?
April 28th at 6:30, 896 Home Street, door 4 open.
And this kind of information, what's coming up, where's it going to be? Go to our website. Does anybody know our website? www.ottawacountypatriots.org. Okay, if nobody else is going to buy a ticket, could we have the ticket person come up here?
I'm a member of the,
Yes, you are.
I should get a free ticket.
That's right, any members of the not the Gold Club, the Madison and so on. The Jane Madison, these are membership things whereby if you are a member of one of them, this is a higher level costs $150 to $200 per year, you get a free ticket, all right? And that's you know, in addition to the regular membership stuff. Okay, now, yes, Tom?
Gene.
Look, Tom.
Tom Boot wants to buy another ticket?
Purchase.
Oh, he needs a ticket, a free ticket.
I get a free one.
Yep.
Okay. Now, could we have the youngest member in our group? Where's Nathan? Nathan,
Nathan's not here.
get your daughter up here.
She's shackled by debt.
She's shackled by debt.
She can't move.
Okay. Now, I want you to close your eyes.
They're going down.
Well, not with your hands. 'Cause your hands are-
Need at least one. You probably look for this one.
Yeah, let me put this one right.
Want to read it out?
2555003.
Again, one more time.
2555003.
They're not here, redraw.
We got a winner!
We didn't hear anything. We didn't hear anything.
How much is the winning?
Tammy,
What's the total?
what's the total? One for the winner.
125, he gets 63.
63, okay.
And by the way, we'll be doing this at our future meetings, or we will have a raffle.
We'll have different things coming up.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things coming up.
Who won that? Who won?
What's this gentleman's name here?
New guy.
The new guy. Well, then, you know, what's his name?
Daryl Turner.
Bill Turner?
Daryl.
Okay, got it.
D-A-R-R.
Daryl Turner. Excellent.
2 hours, 1 L.
Excellent. I want to thank everyone for coming. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something about this debt stuff. And I personally think that they should just stop this Social Security, because nobody in here really needs it.
Thank you so much.
No, I'm never gonna see it.
I'm being extremely facetious on that because I need mine. All right? I want to thank everyone for coming. I do want you to remember April 23rd. I do want you to remember to go to our website. I'd like you to look around. And if you have content that you want to add, you have an original article, etc., I want you to contact me and I'll put you in touch with the web content manager. Thank you all for coming.
Nice meeting you.
Whatever it is, that makes a mandatory. It's not, spending money is not set by. Qualified, to be paid out this way. Unless you change the criteria for so, discretionary, pretty much. Thank you, my friend. Pretty much mandatory is everything from payments to that year over year. So that's 4 years that was paid down. That was paid down the last couple of years. But really what they were doing was we have an excess amount of Social Security coming in on budget. But what are they going to do on the budget? But that's counter to now there's no
It's got to end.
you know what kills me? And I've had these arguments with my mom.
So secure, I don't know if I'm gonna live long enough. They dole it out there.
Most people need some people have chronic disease and they need.
I get the thing back all the time.
But for most people,
All right.
the causes of healthcare a couple of years and they're, very young, shots, that sort of stuff. And they're not aged. So, about 2 years before they die, something they die.
Biatch.
Some people